been good to me, preserved my youth. Not only did it capture my goals, it told me the truth.
Conversate for a few, cause in a few
I let them know we missing you. The love is unconditional.
Wave your hands across the land if we family.
We got a world premiere right here, now get lost.
So off we go, let the trumpets blow. And hold on, because the driver of the mission is a pro.
All right, another episode of Conversate with Us Radio. Remember, Conversate stands for Communicate, Converse, and Relate. I'm your host, Mar B. Make sure you follow us on social media at Conversate with Us. Follow us on our YouTube. Give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the show. We're introducing you to a lot of good people who are doing good things for the community. We want to make sure we promote awareness about all the things that they're doing. On today's show, I have a young man who is an author who wrote an incredible book, and we want to bring him on to talk about his process and talk about the book itself and what he wants to accomplish with it. So Wycla Bratton, come on in, bro.
Hey.
I should have said he's a good alpha man as well. You know, he's a good alpha man, even though I'm wearing this red, so my man's with Hazley, but I'm promoting one of my other shows, man. So Wycla, man, where you from, man?
I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, originally. Now I'm out in California, Long Beach specifically.
So from KC, you moved to Long Beach. Now, how much time did you spend in KC? How much time you been in Long Beach?
So born in KC, I was there till 7th grade, and I moved to Los Angeles. So this is actually my second time being back out this way. So I moved to LA, middle school, so 7th grade. I was here till about 10th grade, and towards the end of 10th grade, moved back to Kansas City. And then after 4 years of teaching in Kansas City, upon graduating and things, I moved back to California. So I've been back out here about 3 years now.
So you moved 7th grade, you said, right?
Yeah.
So that's a tough time to move from KC to LA. How was that for you? Like, what were the challenges?
Man, in retrospect, I look at it as a blessing from God. At the time that I was living in Kansas City, for anybody who knows, I was living on the north side. And so, Parker Square, that like whole little intersection right there, TV Walking, Way Minor, and all of that. And so, some of the people that I was running with at the time, wasn't making the best decisions. We ain't, have much guidance, so we just kind of doing what we wanted to do. And I was getting in some trouble. And the route that I was on, like if I didn't get stopped, it would have been crazy, And my dad, who had been telling me for the longest, like, move out here to California, move out here to California. I'm like, all right, whatever. And it didn't happen until one day he saw a picture of me in a bathroom, and we throwing up, the set or whatever as a picture. And he was like, oh, I gotta get my son out of here. And that's how I ended up in LA. So that transition for me was much needed. But in the mindset that I was in when I got to LA, I was like, bro, it's game bang capital. I'm about to do it out here too. Like, so
but hold on. Gang
yeah.
culture in LA is much different than the gang culture that we got and grew up with in the Midwest. I mean, the rules and guidelines and street codes that guys from the Midwest, they're not even I should say the LA gang culture versus most people in because you're a younger brother, most people in the Midwest, my age, we had like gangs that were based out of Chicago. And Chicago gangs, I would say, although there was the negative aspects of the gang life, there was still some honor that was involved in it. Whereas I knew plenty of gangbangers. And they knew that I was a kid that was on a track to go I was, playing football. I was going to go to college. So they weren't trying to involve me in their activities. If I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, there were several of them that would say, hey, look, it's time for you to head out. You know what I mean? Whereas there was cats my age who got to hang out. Now, I realize now they were looking out for my best interest, right? And I love them. I appreciate them for that. I think when the LA gang culture got introduced to the Midwest, there was a movie called Colors. I don't know if you ever saw Colors.
Vaguely familiar with it.
Okay, because it came out when I was, I'm 45, so it came out when I was a young teenager, like 13, 14, I want to say.
Okay.
And it was the biggest piece of propaganda ever because it promoted the Bloods and the Crips. You didn't really see Bloods and Crips, you know, in the Midwest until that movie came out, and when there was no control or anything in terms of like how, you know, how things should be regulated. It was just a mess. It was a mess. So when you go out to LA, it's much different. The stakes are much higher. So I thought about that. You said, well, I'm representing KC. I'm sure you have some lessons that you had to learn when you got out to California.
Man, the learning curve was quick. And I always share this story because this is like the story that was like, okay, this is not the life for you, big dog. And so me and my brother, we walking home from the library. I call myself a hood nerd, like I'm from that, but I still like love books and stuff like that. But we coming back from the library, he has on all blue. So the reason they come across the street is for him. And so, and granted, we by a police station. Like I kid you not, the police station is right here. They come across the street, where you from? And at that time, Kansas City wasn't saying that. So I'm thinking he really asked me where I'm from. So I'm like, Kansas City. And he stopped, like stuck. And I'm like, okay, maybe they know about Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas out here. So I'm like, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. And at that moment, that was the first time, like we can tell that was the first time he got that response. That was the first time I got that question. But I mean, you can tell he was clearly clutching. He was ready to come over there. Him and two other dudes that he was with, they was ready to come handle whatever business they were trying to handle. It was a function across the street too. So looking back on it, I seen it as maybe they were trying to get some stripes, big homies over there, whatever. But by the grace of God, somebody like yelled, like those are my cousins. And we hadn't been out here that long. And so they kind of looked and just walked away. And that was like a realization for me, like right off the jump, like that life that you would, whatever you was trying to do in Kansas City, like that's not it. That's not it. So
yeah. So you had lessons that you learned, ups and downs, right? Kansas City to LA, regular trials and tribulations of a young Black man. And that led you came back to Kansas City, you went to the University of Missouri, right? Pledged the illustrious chapter of Zeta Alpha, of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Became an Alpha man, and now you're back in education, helping other people, helping youth. What led you to write this book?
And so I've been writing since I was 13. I actually thought I was gonna be a rapper.
Okay.
But that's because like my aunties and uncles, they all did that, and I wanted to be like them. But when I was kicking what I had wrote to them, they was like, man, that sounds like poetry. And so I just kind of focused on that from there. But writing this book really just came with, you know, this notion that God has given me a gift. And to let that go to waste or to not use it, you know what I'm saying, would be for me, and the way that I understood it would be like a slap in the face, you know, to be given something and not use it. And I also wanted to leave a legacy for the generations to come after me. I plan on having kids someday. So I wanted to give them something, you know, leave them something behind. Like, this was my dad. My dad did this. And just sharing my story, like, I understand now that a lot of the things that I experienced growing up, like I used to resent my parents. I used to resent, you know, different family members or whatever. And it's like those things that I experienced growing up, like that wasn't for me. Like it happened to me, but it wasn't necessarily for me because as an educator, I'm working with children who've been abused. I'm working with children who've been homeless. I'm working with children who've been in foster care. You know, all of these things that happened to me in my upbringing. And so to have that type of connection with the kids means a lot in that setting, and just in general, honestly. And so thinking about all of those things was like, all right, you gotta push this book out. You gotta produce something. And so those are the things that led me to writing this book.
Okay. So the format of your book, man, I've had a chance to read a good portion of it. It's a lot of poems, and I had somebody on the show about a month or so ago, another Mizzou alumni like ourselves, and I was asking her, I said, "Now, what is it now? Is this a haiku? Is this a sonnet? Like, what type of format is this poetry book, this book of poems that you wrote?" And I made the joke, and I told her how I failed English 20. I had to take English 20 twice, so forgive me for asking you to dig deep into, like, break it down, because this is a book of poems, and I'm digging it because is talking about different things that Black men, young Black men, encounter growing up in quote unquote the hood or in their community. What type of process did you have when you started to write this book, and like what's the format? Like it's because it's a different format.
Yeah. So I didn't follow a particular form of poetry. So, we got like sonnets and haikus and all of that. Um, I don't know. That's it's never like I don't know if I'm like a rule breaker or a traditions breaker. But I've always wanted to do things that felt natural to me. And so when I wrote this book, I wanted to communicate it or express it in the way that made sense for me. And understanding like, a lot of people don't know poetry forms. And like unless you were like an English major or something like that, like a lot of people not really tripping off of, oh, this is a nice like haiku, or this is a nice whatever. It's like, I'm reading it. I see that like most people will respond to the line breaks. And so I kind of focused on that more. Where's my line breaks? How am I spacing different words, different lines? And I wanted to go that route. And yeah. So some of the inspiration came from Sandra Cisneros, and I hope I'm saying her name correctly, but she wrote The House on Mango Street. And one of the things that she talked about in writing that was being able to connect with anybody, the everyday person, whether you were, a super scholar or somebody who just picked up a book yesterday, like anybody would be able to connect to it. And so I wanted to connect with anyone. So that's why you see like the stories vary like in terms of what's talked about. There's some things that if you lived in that environment, you're gonna pick up right away. There's some things that if you're not from that environment, you may not pick up right away, but there's other poems in there as well. And so I wanted to just go that route. So there's no real like, oh, I only use this structure. It's like, no, I wanted it to be communicated in this way.
Man, I think that's dope, bro. Because there's a lot of people who've written books. I've written a book. You focused on poetry. You told your story through poetry, and you put your twist on it. And if this is something that you keep going forward with, which is something I hope that you do, this would be your signature style. You talk about leaving a legacy for your children and for your family. This is an incredible way to do this. So, what's the reception been like for your book?
Man, it's been cool. Like, a lot of people have reached out to me, like, man, like, I love this book. They telling me like different poems. A lot of people have appreciated Psych Mike's character, and so I've gotten a lot of feedback around that. But from children, because some of my scholars that I teach, they've bought the book. So from children to people my age to people that have been around longer than I have, like everyone has found something to connect with in the book, and I've just been grateful for that because as a creator, as you know yourself, as a creator, you never really know how people are going to receive what you put out, and to have that type of reception is just like I'm grateful for that. And it's more so just reaffirming to know that the gift that I was able to receive from God, it's like it's reaffirmed that this is your gift. So I appreciate it.
So what's next for you? Are you going to be doing some open houses, or what's next for the book? And do you have any projects coming up in the future?
Yeah, so in terms of what's next for the book, I want to connect with bookstores, get my books in bookstores because we're still in the infancy of this whole thing. And so connect with other authors. I did a live reading with the people who bought the pre-orders. And so I plan on, maybe doing some stuff on Instagram or different things like that. So it's been a challenge here recently because I'm in grad school. So finding that time and all of that is presenting itself as a challenge. But I know I gotta, maneuver through that and work through that. But just finding different ways to put it out. Kwame Alexander, who wrote the crossover, I saw a Instagram post from him, and he's signing the book, the crossover. This book has been out for years. And so that was inspiration to me to just like just keep going, just keep going, keep finding new spaces to get the book in and exposure, So I'll be speaking at a conference in March. So I plan on doing some things down there as well because I'll be hosting the poetry night. Okay. So using that stage as an opportunity as well.
Cool. Well, man, much success to you. I'm very proud of you for doing something that is, not a lot of people do. A lot of people talk about they want to do something that like write a book or run a marathon or whatever, but it takes a special type of person to say, you know what, let me just go ahead and do it and put pen to paper, put foot to pavement, and to make things happen. So your family should be proud. I'm proud of you as a young alpha man, and I hope for much success for you with this book. Keep pushing. Find those local bookstores. Ask them if you can do a book signing at their location. More than likely, they'll be willing to help you. And just let us know. We do what we can to promote you. So where can people find you? Where can they find the book?
Yeah. So the book is on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, my website, WyclaBratton.com. You can find me on Instagram at Wycla the Writer. So WyclaThewriter.
We want folks to go to your website because Amazon and Barnes and Noble, they tax. So buy directly from this young man, so he get as much money as he can from this book, this excellent book that he wrote, and make sure you give him all the support that you can. So we're gonna spread the news, man, and hope for much success for you, man. Again, I'm proud of you. So that's it, y'all. Another episode of Conversate with us. Remember, conVersate stands for communicate, converse, and relate. Make sure you go to our social media. Follow us at Conversate with us. Go to our YouTube, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, and we'll holler you next time. Peace. 06.